4:30, and I'm calling this budget workshop to order. City of Bastrop reserves the right to reconvene, recess, and realign the regular session or called executive session or order of business at any time prior to adjournment. We do have a quorum. We will move to citizen comments. Madam City Secretary, do we have anyone scheduled to speak?
No, Mayor.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to item 3, pre-budget planning workshop. Discuss draft FY25 budget and announce a public hearing to be held on September 10th, 2024, and to adopt tax rate and budget on September 17, 2024. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. My apologies. It's adopt a tax rate on August 13th and then hold the budget hearing on September 10th. We've got some mix-up. Okay.
Say this, I'm sorry.
So at the next city council meeting, we'll adopt a tax rate, and that's where the final budget will be created. So this is, for the folks out in the public, this is the proposed budget based on all of the available information and on the existing tax rate. If the council chooses to roll back the rate, or the council chooses to increase the rate based on any needs that you guys discussed today, that tax rate is adopted at August 13th meeting.
But the public hearing is still scheduled to be held on September 10th?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we're still in the molding and modeling phase, is what I want
Got it.
everybody to know.
Just
So
want to make sure
if
we
you don't see it
convey.
here, we've still got probably 4 or 5 meetings yet to be able to make it happen.
Just
And
want to
then-
make sure we convey the appropriate information.
And
Yes,
what's
ma'am.
the 17th date?
The September 10th and September 17th are the days that we have for the first reading and second reading of the budget. And we actually have built into the timeline if we need a meeting on September 24th. Because you can adopt the budget through September 30th.
Thank you, ma'am.
We have our CFO on a go-to, and we have Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland on a go-to. So if they have any questions, it'll just be on the microphone. We don't have them up on screen. So here we go. This was a very interesting budget. We have a lot of growth going on around us, but within city proper, we didn't have a whole lot. It's going to take a little bit for everything that we have in process in terms of plats and things to go vertical, and we will feel those increases probably not even in the 26 budget, but not till the 27 budget. So we had total revenues of $73 million projected. We have total expenditures of $93 million projected. And before anybody freaks out, legally, we are required to submit a balanced budget. And so that $20 million that is shown there is from available bond proceeds that we still have in process to complete different projects. We have $13.5 million from CO 2003, if you can believe that. That was to do street rehab, drainage, Old Iron Bridge, and some riverbank stabilization projects. 2.2 million of CO issuance 2002, that was for street rehabilitation. We have ARPA funds of 2.4. We have a CO from 2018 for $400,000. Let me skip ahead to that so you guys can see it. It's just an extra. I put it in here in case you guys were going to ask what that 20 million was, and I figure I may as well cover it. Then we have EDC has about 934,000 for Blakey. That's their 1 million contribution toward Blakey. And then we have $710,000 in the vehicle equipment and replacement fund. So that's where that $20 million that you see, the differential of where it's coming from. We're not rating any of the fund balances to balance this budget. Okay, so that takes us to slide 2, which is just a budget at a glance. You'll see we had an increase in ad valorem, which is property. there's a slide that's not up here. 260,000 ad valorem increase, and sales tax is 301,770. So there's only about $562,000 of quote-unquote additional or new revenue incorporated into the budget above and beyond last year. That's mentioned in your budget book. In terms of expenditures, what ate up that money was $170,000 in 2 additional police officers and $501 in the cost of living of 3.3% to the staff. So from year over year, the 23-24 budget, which is the budget that we're in, the total revenue projected was $16.8 million. We are expecting $16.9 million, and the proposed budget for 24-25 has revenue of $17.755 million. We have operating expenditures of $17.3 million and $434,000 of excess revenue over expenditures. We do have a one-time transfer out of $620,000, and that is mostly to the vehicle equipment and replacement fund. And that leaves our ending balance at $6.1 million, which is 35% of our fund balance requirement. And even drawing down $620,000, we still have an estimated reserve of $1.77 million over what's required in the fund balance policy. And so what the city has traditionally done is that $1.7 million is how you guys fund one-time expenses. You've moved $800,000 previously into street maintenance. Last year, you moved $265,000 into Mayfest Park. So that's typically from that amount of money that you end up drawing down from. Some considerations this year is the taxable base only increased by 1%. That is, again, a very small, significant increase in terms of overall and what's happening. There was $62.8 million of new valuation added to the rolls, but when you do 62.8 divided by 1,000 multiplied times 0.00499, it's not a whole lot of money. And then we still have properties under ARB review at the appraiser. Those will continue on, and we'll continue to get new numbers throughout the year. And we end up we are very conservative in our estimates, so we never calculated ever receiving, everybody's going to have settled in court.
Do we know how many city properties are under review, or any indication?
I do not have that number.
Thank you.
I don't have that number handy. Checking to see if our friends are commenting online. Not yet. So this is a big one, because the no new revenue rate is the rate that would generate the same amount of revenue from last year, and we did have some extra valuation. However, because there's so many things under protest, the proposed maintenance and operational rate at 0.30 will actually generate about $25,000 less, $24,600 less revenue than the no new revenue rate. So essentially, we've rolled back the property tax, even though it doesn't feel like it because the number is the same, but there's some room in there in that debt structure for the old Iron Bridge repairs. So, and there's the comparables. The no new revenue rate in 23-24 was 0.4832. In 24-25, it's 0.5009. Proposed tax rate is 0.4994. If we were to propose an increase that required voter approval, that's anything above 0.5186. The no new revenue maintenance and operation rate would be 0.3051, and what we were proposing is 0.3032, which is 0.19 less than the no new revenue rate. And our debt service remains the same at 0.1962. So here's the graph that depicts where we are in terms of maintenance and operation and debt with overall valuations. And you can see that overall valuations have taken just a slight have taken just a slight dip in terms of how much dollars we are actually receiving. Here's the comparable net taxable value, and then total tax collections, and then this is how we calculate the tax rate at 0.4994. Again, this is sort of for the math geeks in the world, how you make the sausage. These are all of the numbers that go into play. So the rubber meets the road. What does that mean for the average taxpayer? The average homestead value in 2023 was $288,371. Multiplied that by the 4994 tax rate, that's $1,440. The new value is $308,325, and at the 499 rate, that is $1,538. So that means residents will have, on the average tax rate, residents will have about a $98 additional tax into their tax bill, which translates into about 27 cents a day. This is down from the 114 or so last year. Our sales tax are a little bit lower, less aggressive than we had been budgeting in the prior years. We'd been budgeting 5%, 7%, et cetera. This year, we're expected to hit sales tax right on target. So we were super, super, super conservative in just a 3.5% increase over year. And so that puts us at a little over $9 million expected in FY25, which is an increase of $301,000. So what were our budget priorities? Street maintenance and rehabilitation is still our number one priority. Carrying over the old iron bridge from last year's project, we added 2 additional police officers and 2 additional wastewater employees. As he brings the new wastewater treatment plant online and the new wells, he needs additional personnel. It includes the cost of living and the step merit increases and the retirement plan from 25 to 20 years. It does not include the one-time $100,000 that's necessary to make that happen. So we'll have to figure out if council still wishes to pursue that. We'll need to move that from that one-time available. There are no major capital improvement projects until we get finished what we have on the books. It scares me and hurts me at the same time that we have 2002 and 2003 money still in the bank. On one hand, it's great because it's earning interest. On the other hand, those projects have increased exponentially in cost, that the increase in interest won't cover those. And then,
Madam City Manager, so
Yeah.
the COLA increase was at 3.5, is that what you said?
3.3.
3.3, thank you.
And then we have 10 new police vehicles and several pieces of heavy equipment for street maintenance. And this begins our process of getting ourselves out of the lease craziness. Significant changes. There's $170,000 that hits the general fund, and that's the 2 police officers, and there is a reclassification in the fire department where he has moved his personnel around a little bit. 3.3 in cost of living, and we had already included the 2.5% step increase that everybody's due on their anniversary date, and that equals $665,000. And then our VERF fund, those payments to cover those vehicles increased to $526,000. So we are untangling ourselves from that because those numbers continue to climb every time we add a person and we have to add a vehicle. Had a conversation with Doug the other day and with the police chief about, if our vehicles are still usable after 5 years, are we sending them to auction? What are we doing? How are we repurposing them? Making sure that we're taking care of things so we're not just buying a new vehicle because it's 5 years and I contributed to the VERF and it's my turn, I'm due a new vehicle, so. There's the new positions that are included in the police department. There's the personnel costs itemized. Again, we received a rate pass for health insurance, but we already know 26 will hold a 12% rate increase. So we need to prepare ourselves for that.
On the retirement plan, you said there's a one-time charge of $100,000 to move that from a 25 to a 20-year plan?
Yes, and then it has an annual cost of about $9,000, $9,100.
But you feel pretty confident we have that 100,000 one-time payment?
Sure, we have 1.7 over required reserve, and I'm not telling you guys to do all
I understand.
1.7. However, we did promise that we were going to continue down the street maintenance path. So I do expect you guys to tell me that we'll need to move some money into street maintenance. But yes, I feel pretty confident about the retirement.
Thank you, ma'am.
So, oh, there's that retirement reduction to 20 years, 9189. And so recurring operating expenditures increased by $1.3 million. That is these numbers. That is vehicles. Again, every time you add a vehicle, every time you add an employee, those numbers continue to add up. We never just add a person. You add the person, you add the retirement costs, you add all of the operational costs that go along with that person, the license and the computer and all the IT equipment. So any one person is never that just one. They probably have a 35% overhead cost. This is the 620,000, and this is again above the 1.7. We would have had 2.3 million over reserve. There's 300,000 for police cars. We do need some server upgrades of 220, and then fleets and facilities needs some trucks. So that is $620,000. And, sorry, next slide. Again, just a comparison. So the Development Services Fund, not sure why we itemize, this is not the Development Services Fund. I'm not sure why. Oh, yes, it is. 2.4, sorry, I was on the wrong slide. We have a 23-24 projected budget, so we're going to miss our projection by about $300,000. We had estimated total revenue at $2.4 million this year. We're going to probably hit over $2 million, but instead of having $776,000 over revenue, we'll probably end the year with $461,000 over revenue. The fund is still substantially healthy. There is a significant amount of revenue influx that we're currently working out as we're working through the school district. They have chosen us to do their inspections as opposed to going through the third party. So there'll be a significant revenue influx that hasn't been calculated here yet. So it may not be realized in this fiscal, though. So. And then here's an overview of the VERF. The transfers in from the general fund equals $620,000, and then water wastewater is $50,000. Total expenditures increased this year, and that was 10 police cars, the paving machine, the backhoe, and those added to that 620 that is separate and apart from what we were asking for. Believe it or not, not all of the vehicles are in the VERF. We have some vehicles that are going to be considered salvage, if not this year, very soon. We have some vehicles that are in very, very, very poor shape. So the revenue for sales tax allocated to the street maintenance fund, we were, I think this number is underestimated, because if we hit our sales tax revenue, it should be closer to 3.3. So I believe there's about $500,000 here that isn't shown. Edie, like Ms. Waldron, very conservative. And then we have $5.6 million available from current bond funds as well for prior street projects.
Madam City Manager, we need to note that there's an extra zero in that street maintenance fund.
Oh, yes. I don't have 28 million. We have
I don't
2.8
know
million.
how to read those with the commas.
2.8 million. So the proposal for streets, I had John give me an itemization of what he is proposing to do for streets. And I'll bring that up on the screen in just a second. Here we go. HA5 is 1.4 million. That will treat around 23 lane miles additional. TerraCool will do all of the streets in Pecan Park. That's 2.39. I think he means Piney Creek Bend, not Pecan Park. Oh, okay. Then he's right. Next year, FY25, Pecan Park. Seal Coat, then HA5 will do around 5 lane miles. That's 583,000. We have some mill and overlay. That's 173,000. That'll take care of about 4 lane miles. We have rehabilitation, street rehabilitation. That's Water, Mesquite, Gutierrez, and Childers. That'll take $1.4 million. And then we have some Bastrop County partnership rehab projects. That's going to be Piney Ridge, Post Oak, Rim, and Tahitian. That's $249,000. So significant amount of street work continues in the next fiscal year.
Councilmember Foster.
Yes, ma'am.
May I ask you a question about Water Street?
Sure.
Is that the portion from the highway to Chestnut or the full, what for Water Street?
FY25 is Gutierrez to Chestnut. And then end of FY25, beginning of FY26 is the rest of Water Street to give water an opportunity to make the necessary water and wastewater repairs.
Okay, thanks.
And then comes Linden, and then comes Farm. Okay, general fund debt service. We have bonding capacity of $18 million. We have the old Iron Bridge already incorporated for $15 million. We have an opinion of probable cost that has a whole heck of a lot of contingency right now for $20 million. As we get closer, that number will begin to be refined further. We are due for, I'll tell you right now, we are due, Elizabeth just sent me the information. There's 25% design contingency in that $20 million, so it's still pretty significant.
It is.
We're on track to receive 90% submittal for the bridge October the 8th. So the one thing that they did tell us was the overlooks that were included in the Park and Rec master plan are not structurally feasible. So
When's that 90% completion due?
October the 8th.
Thank you.
That'll give staff about 30 days to give their final comments to get 100%, hopefully by the end of the year, and get it out to bid in early '25. Hewitt Zollers is the engineer. They've already submitted their paperwork for the Army Corps permit, so we're moving right along with the bridge.
Happy days.
Water, wastewater debt service. So we have some projects that are listed that at some point we will need to go out for bond funding. We sent our information to our impact fee folks that are going to tell us what our new impact fee should be to be able to handle the capacity that's needed in the water and wastewater fund. That is a fund whose fund balance is right teetering on not meeting the statutory requirements. Our impact fees have been received slower than we would have liked, and that debt's coming due. So in the general fund, no fee changes are being proposed. You'll read in the budget book that there is a short-term rental policy that we are going to be reviewing, and as necessary, there will be a new fee created for that. I don't have that in front of you yet. That will come at some point, maybe even after budget adoption. The water wastewater, the last $5 base fee increase to align with American water wastewater standards is this year. And then we did amend the building fees. That was on your last council meeting to match state law requirements. So just some final considerations. The proposed rate that I have in the budget today does not have to be the final adopted rate. If the council identifies items that were not listed in this budget and you've asked for, for it to be prioritized, you can increase the rate. If we adopt the voter approval rate, that generates an additional $206,000 to the general fund. We talked about sales tax being proposed at a conservative 3.5%, and no fee changes being proposed, and the fund balance over the 25% policy reserve is $1.7 million.
Council, any questions for the city manager so far? Seeing none indicated. Good explanation.
So these are the super important dates. October 13th is when we adopt a proposed tax rate. August the 21st is, again, our budget workshop number 1. If you send me back today with information or some modifications or changes you'd like to see to the budget, we will put that together, send that out, and that is our budget workshop number 1 on the 21st. And if necessary, on the 22nd is budget workshop number 2. Any questions?
Not any indicated thus far.
Well, I will say that there are 2 things that I left off of the budget, and it's a matter of process we need to tighten up, and one of those is the Juneteenth funding, and the other one is the rodeo funding. Both of those are normally $25,000 fund request. They come in outside of the normal community asset and community support. So those, I need to incorporate that $50,000. And then if the council so wishes to send me the retirement plan, and then anything else that the council wishes to have included into the budget.
Councilmember Fossler.
I saw Juneteenth and homecoming listed in here somewhere on 20,000 each. I'm trying to find the right page now.
I hope so, because I didn't see it.
Yeah.
And it triggered my memory when I got the letter from the rodeo committee.
That's not saying I can find it quickly, but I did say it because our community, not the assets, our community partners chart was at the bottom, and it was above that in words, so it was not included in the chart, but it was written right above
Is that for
there.
Juneteenth?
Yeah, Juneteenth and homecoming.
Oh,
Yeah.
see. Edie, if you can hear that, can you find Juneteenth or the rodeo included in the existing budget? And Councilmember Kirkland, or I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland asked what the 12% cost increase in FY26 would be to the city in terms of health insurance. And Edie's response was approximately $205,000. You're absolutely right, Councilmember Fossler.
Did you find it? What page?
124 of the digital book. Yay.
So I don't know if you needed it in that, the total, because it's not in the chart for the total, but it is in there.
Yes.
But it's listed as 20, and you just said 25. So
25.
it should be 25.
Yeah.
And Big Bang is not in the chart as well below. Do we?
I believe she moved that to hot.
Oh, right, yeah, those words say that, okay.
City Manager, just to confirm, so the Juneteenth and homecoming is 25, not 20?
Correct.
Okay.
So I need to find 10, which is better than 50.
Councilmember Foster.
Is this the time for all the questions?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to start just kind of general overview on the org chart, page 15.
Okay.
We have economic development as a department. Is that how you want that? It's not really a city department, is it?
They are reporting to me currently.
Currently, okay.
I could show them as a dotted line.
Okay, I'm just going to be flipping back between page 2 and 15 for the org chart. Okay. For Public Works, all those new departments, water, wastewater, Parks and Rec, Streets and Drainage, BPNL, they all report to Public Works now?
No, that Public Works is a whole, they're all individual directors.
That's what I remember. So they do not report
No,
to Public Works.
they're all individual directors.
Okay.
Water,
Look-
wastewater is one, streets is one,
Yeah,
Parks and
that's how I
Recreation.
remembered it. It just looks different in the chart.
I can clarify that.
Cool, okay. For community engagement, is that a department?
No, it's also a division. That resides Convention Center, Communications, Library, and what am I missing? Main Street.
So they do not, they report to community engagement?
Kathy is acting as the community engagement leadership. She's not called community engagement director. She's still Convention Center director.
Okay, let me flip over to that department page. Because I had some questions about how that was organized. I'll get there. Okay, page 123, y'all.
Yep.
Page 120. Oh, yeah, we were just there for the other thing. That's great, okay. So page 126 is what I'm looking at, the personnel schedule for community engagement. So under the proposed staffing for that one, proposed personnel, so a special events manager at half, who is that?
I don't know.
Is
That's
that
a good
Kathy?
question.
'Cause it looks like-
That's a part-time person, it looks like.
Because it looks like all those people report to that person, and that, is that true? All the people in that department report to,
Main Street manager, so it looks like that .5 is under the Main Street manager. And then I have, yeah. I'll have to clarify that personnel schedule. Looks like we've got some mix-up,
okay, because I know, I'm looking at Michaela right here.
yeah.
I know she should be here somewhere, so she should be a full-time employee under the 2025, maybe?
Terry, is it that that special events person is charged half out of hot and half out of general? No, you're Main Street, oh, maybe. I'll have to clarify that, Councilmember Foster.
Okay,
That's why it's a .5, because it's probably split out of multiple funds.
okay, awesome. Let me see what other questions I had on that economic development. And then on the departments, listing of departments, like hot funds is listed as a department, is that how we want hot funds listed?
So.
Hotel occupancy tax, sorry.
Tell me what page you're on.
Sorry, page 3. I'm just trying to get the departments listed to match the org chart.
Oh, sorry, CFO is, I cannot see your comments. So the hot fund is not a department, it is a fund, and it funds multiple departments.
Okay.
So do you see it listed as a department?
Yeah, on page 3, it's listed hotel occupancy tax, it's listed as a department.
On page 3.
Got midway down, a third of the way down.
My page 3 is the table of contents.
Yeah, page 3, table of contents. Yeah, it's listed as a department.
Oh, I
Maybe-
gotcha. I got, hotel occupancy.
Maybe it's fine to be
tax.
listed that way. I was just for clarity.
No,
however
it's
you want
not
it.
a department.
Okay.
It is a fund.
Right.
Like I said, it funds multiple departments, but let me see how it's broken out. Oh. She has it as a department funding the community assets and Visit Bastrop and professional services. I got it.
Okay, we want to look at that title.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got to give that a more, a clearer title.
Okay, thank you. Back to the org chart on page 15. So just so I understand correctly, the new departments, water, wastewater, parks, all the public works, all of those individual directors report to Andres, correct?
Technically, they report to me, but
Okay.
yes, through Andres.
Okay, okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Pass the witness.
What?
I said, pass the witness.
Okay, I want to jump over to the retirement fund. I remember us talking about increasing, going for the COLA, the 3.3, doing the step, but I remember us giving like a thumbs up on that. I don't remember us giving us a thumbs up on the 25 to 20 year. So maybe that's the time we have this talk now.
Sure. And that's why we didn't include it in the operational budget. It's
Okay.
if it's something the council chooses to pursue, then we move it from a one-time expense.
Okay, so it's like $9,000 annual operating and like 100,000.
A one-time.
A one-time, okay. I don't know. What do y'all think? We can come back to it, but it's, in my mind, it's not resolved yet with a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
You got it? Councilmember Meyer.
Sylvia, on page 118, under HR, just, do we have a position where the contractual services increased 185%? Do we just start contracting something out and cut something else out?
In contractual services.
Under HR, page 118.
We went from 3,500 to $10,000. I believe that was going to be for the cultural, is Tanya? Was that was for the cultural consultant? That, we started that, apparently city started that under Paul Hoffman, but it never finished, and so we put some dollars into there for cultural training and awareness.
And the same probably going up for the 133% increase on supplies and materials?
Supplies and materials from 4,100 to 9,600. Tanya, would you care to?
That was if we got any person, but that got added, so that needs to actually go down.
Oh, okay. I will reduce that.
It's actually what I didn't hear.
If there was an additional person added to their budget, but there was not.
Okay. Councilmember Fossler.
Thank you. Could we look at page 59, please?
Sure.
Under the general fund, one-time expenses, comprehensive summary.
Page 59, okay?
Page 59, yeah. So the headers there are FY 2023 budgeted and FY 2024 budgeted. Are those indeed those years? I mean, should we have a 2025 in there?
Yes, those should, yes.
So is it just the header that needs editing, or do you think it's the numbers below it as well?
I am not sure. I'd have to check. Edie, if you'll look at page 59, we have FY '23, FY '24, but no FY '25 column.
And you can cross-reference it with page 46, because like, for example, that general, let's see.
She needs to pull in 2025. It's not shown.
Okay. Okay, I'm just trying to get that. Gotcha, so 2023, okay, all the way. On that same page, the expenditures by expense type, those also have a lot of F123. Are those, do we need to update those, or are these really carrying over from '23?
So we have an asset management study that was $100,000. That's, I'm going to defer to Doug. Do you need $100,000 for an asset management study? Yeah, so that'll be removed. Her K-9 startup unit, we already paid for that, so that's also crossed out. We do have the implementation cost for a new customer portal, that's in code, that is actually correct. We do need an annexation plan in development services, that is correct. Replacement tasers for police, that is correct. And rock screens for the mowing equipment. I don't even know why they're called suitcase weights, but I'll leave that to John Edelton. That is also correct. Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, this is under parks, $6,000. Suitcase weights and rock screens. It goes on the tractor. Okay. Well, there you go. So this total, instead of 255,500, just got reduced to 255,500 less 114,500, so.
Woohoo! Okay, and then up at the, above that chart where it says the general fund is transferring from excess fund balance over the 25 policy reserve amount. That's just, like, where is the reserve? Where do we see the reserve? Is it just always a 25% out there?
25% is our policy minimum to have in reserve. I can send you our fund balance lists.
Okay, that's awesome.
And typically, we don't incorporate any drawdown from the fund balance unless council says, go draw down the fund balance.
Okay.
And we typically do that after this meeting, but before the final budget. I don't think there's anything super major in terms of a drawdown this year that we didn't already think about that needed to happen, like the vehicles, to
Okay.
begin to buy our way out of leases. And then if council chooses to do another $800,000 towards streets.
Okay. For page 58, that other charges, which is like 1.12 mil, what's that?
On page, sorry, I'm gonna get my phone to start zooming in my text. Other charges. Oh, that's a reduction in contributions to the general fund from all of the departments. Admin share from, it's, go to page 56, Mr. Andres says. So normally, all the departments contribute to the general fund for overhead expenses, et cetera. Edie counted it in each department, in each fund, so there wouldn't be a transfer over. And it's to cover like IT, accounting, HR, et cetera, et cetera.
I did catch that. Thank you for bringing that up in the back of the room. There, what I highlight is there are currently no 380 agreements being budgeted, and that is not true, is it? And the other charges, don't we have some 380 agreements being budgeted right now?
The 380, yeah, they'd be out of general.
Different
'cause it's
category?
Sales tax.
Okay.
They're coming out of sales tax from Pearl River. You probably won't realize it until the FY '26 budget because they don't begin to receive anything until they create it.
Okay.
So it may not be received until the '26 or '27 budget.
So not in
Or
25.
realized, yeah.
Gotcha. I'll turn off my mic, give someone a chance.
And that's a good catch, Councilmember Foster, because, those are, like I said before, when I do the ROI and I start to go, hey, if it doesn't generate, then we shouldn't be giving it back, because in no time should we be on the negative end of that, needing to contribute more than we're actually receiving.
On the question that Councilmember Foster asked about economic development, do we anticipate a reporting change process in there this FY?
I know that we had advertised for the bear position. The executive board talked about putting a pause on that till we get through the sports complex. And we had essentially one applicant that met all of the requirements, and so the board opted to not interview just one person. We did boost it again. We did receive one additional, perhaps good application. And so we'll go back and cull through and see if the board wants to do that. But as of the last discussion, that we didn't see a change in that.
Outstanding. And and I may have missed this, where's our Main Street manager moved to in the budget?
The Main Street manager is part general fund and part hot fund.
Got it.
It was previously all hot fund, but not a legal expense.
Makes sense. Thank you. Council, any other questions at this point? Councilmember Plunkett.
Yeah, can we talk about streets a little bit? And if we were to put some more money in, what could it do? What would some options be with it? Really like the way what we did this year, looks. Well, time will tell how it holds up, but just, I guess, like to start that discussion with what, say mainly, if we had an extra 800K or whatever, what would we be able to do with it? What impact could we make?
So I'm going to speak a little bit for John, but then I'm going to let John come and talk. John had a request for additional staff, and I said, you can't. I'm going to die on the cross, because I told the council we would spend it doing and not spend it with staff. So there's a point of diminishing return with the amount of staff that we have and how many projects we can actually finish. It would be my recommendation to the council to let us go through the 2.8, see how sales tax is received, because that may be an additional $500,000, because we were on track for 4.4 million that was going to the EDC. We've taken 75% of that, so theoretically it should be 3.3 million. We have a conservative estimate of 2.8, so there's probably an additional 500,000 sitting on the table. And so I would say I'd like us to get maybe a quarter of the year, see how sales tax are doing. And if they're doing really well, then I don't think we'd have to move all 800. We could potentially move 300. But we also have $5.6 million in old bond funds too that are going to work on water, Linden, and Farm. So some of the bigger stuff's already going to be covered. So my suggestion would be perhaps we move it mid-year or after the first quarter to see how things are looking.
Yeah, sure. I think it makes sense to have, kind of a, on deck, list of projects that, if money allows, we can jump on them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Foster.
Hey there. For severance, I don't see severance listed anywhere here, but I also may have not found it yet. How much did we spend in 2024, and how much do we have budgeted for 2025?
We don't budget for it because it's typically absorbed in the department budget. So for example, if a person is granted 3-month severance, they stay on payroll for 3 months, and then we try not to hire until after the 3rd month.
Okay,
What ends up hitting the budget is drag-up pay.
right.
So the severance, the salary itself doesn't hit. What ends up hitting is drag-up pay, all of their unused vacation, and if applicable, sick.
Okay, and then what about 1099 employees? Are they anywhere on here? I see like the part-time and the full-time, but,
I thought we had budgeted $25,000 for 1099 employees. Let me ask that to Edie.
And wouldn't the drag out pay be a balance sheet entry anyway?
Normally, yes, it's essentially an unfunded liability, very much like OPEB, very much like the retirement. I am working with HR, and I've talked to the director level staff about a policy that I used to use in every other city, because people earn vacation, especially the long timers, they're earning vacation at one salary rate and they cash it out at a higher salary rate. So to encourage people to use it, typically I force them to take 1 week and they're able to cash in a week. And that begins to get it off of the balance sheet. And it serves 2 purposes. 1, it lets people have money to go on vacation. And 2, I get it off the balance sheet at the lower rate than having to wait, 4, 5, 10, 15 years of accrual, because we have a lot of employees that carry over. And the rate that vacation time is cashed in at is a lot more expensive than the rate that they earned it.
What was the response to the 1099? Where is that?
35,000 in professional services and organization 2. So org 2 may be the city manager's budget. Yes, city manager's budget, because org 1 is city council, I believe.
What page? What page are you on?
Let me check. Hang on. Professional. Oh, maybe she put it in. What is org 2? Is it administration? Yeah, but let me see. I see 11,000, I see 15,000. Oh, 35,000. No, that's contingency. Let me ask her what page exactly, council member. I see 35,000, but it's in a contingency line item, not, and I see that on page 106. It's got to be administration. It's on the same page that that minus 1.3 million is in. Oh, page 58. Thank you. Page 105 says Edie. Oh, organizational. So it's actually. It's page 105. It's included in the $150,000 for professional services, she says. 105. It's actually. It's 150 in personnel cost. It's in personnel cost. Oh, she just said it's in the $700,000 under the contractual line item on page 106. No, that's not contingency. Last year, we budgeted $25,000, and we went through that pretty quickly.
Repeat the number again?
$35,000 that is included in the contractual services line of $700,531.
So the 35,000 is budgeted for the 1099, and that's included in the 700.
Yes,
And you're anticipating keeping it at 35.
yes.
Do we know how much we went over last year? You said
Well, we
went
stopped
over.
it at 25, but we used it within like 6 months.
Did it do what we wanted it to do?
Absolutely.
So is 35,000 enough if we ran through 25 pretty quickly?
Well, we've got 35,000 in contingency also.
So a total of 60K or
70,
70K?
mhm.
Councilmember Fosler.
Thank you. For page 115, the personnel schedule, the new CIP and grant accountant, was that a move or a hire?
It's a move.
It's a move, okay.
Uh-huh. We had an administrative assistant in engineering that will be moved to capital budgeting, because that's really what she was doing, is the administrative assistant. She'll be moved to capital budgeting and also grants administration.
Okay. For page 165, the capital budget. So we have the total funding requested by department on the left at 76 million. And the total funding requested by source at 66 million. That's a $10 million difference. What?
So they
what-
continue. It's Public Works, Water, Wastewater, Bastrop Power and Light, Cemetery. They continue. So 30 and 36 is the 66, and then 5 and.
Gotcha. So the chart is the right header, but the numbers,
Yes.
okay. That's a little confusing.
Those are scary numbers. Multi-year plan, 144 million.
On the next page, at the bottom, page 166, water CIF requests. So the itemized request for 2025, and let's see, I'm going to cross over to page 169, so I'll be looking at these two pages. So for the West Side Water Service Expansion, we have 2.8 million budgeted for 2025. And then we're going to spend another, like, almost 22 million in the next 2 years? Is that how that's going to be broken up?
So that 34,000 is the borrow that you guys approved a few months ago. It won't be realized until FY '25. That's why it's shown in this budget. So that 34 is already programmed, but there's another 2.8 that would be needed in the future. And then we have wastewater line extension for FM 969. That's part of the Corex deal. And then that's also the pipe bursting project that you see below at 850. That's also included in the most recent bond borrow, so that's already taken into account. Wastewater treatment plant Phase 2. We do need to make that determination, but it's very difficult for me to identify which projects we can go forward with without that capital impact fee change. So right now, our capital impact fees only cover existing debt. We know we're going to have to increase our capital recovery fees and our impact fees. We know we're going to have to do that. But that amount is dependent on what the third-party administrator says that amount is. So I can't just say, oh, I think I need the fees to go up from 8,200 combined to 8,600. We've got to be able to defend what the project needs are and where that growth is happening. And they will be able to tell us your rate needs to increase from blank to blank. Based on that, we end up determining what a future borrow could look like.
Okay, and then for the ratepayers, it's that $5 that's on, that 2025 is the last year of?
A little bit. That $5 mostly takes into account operations. The capital impact fee is all new stuff. All of the new stuff that's coming online. It's the tap fee, essentially.
So we don't know what those rates will look like for?
No, our
okay.
current rate is sitting at about $8,200, which is on par with everybody in Central Texas. We have some cities around us who are $9,000 and $10,000. We just have to, I mean, it's a balance between the weight of what we need and the cost of that. So for example, preliminary estimates for the future expansion for the wastewater treatment plant are in excess of $100 million. Yeah, so how many taps do I need to cover $100 million? Yeah. And believe it or not, the answer is not that scary, because if you do, let's just do Valverde, for example, and you do 2,000 units and you multiply 2,000 units times $8,200 right now, you're going to get about $16 million. And so that's fine. That's only one subdivision. How many more of those do I need to get to 100 million? So therein lies the difference, which is why the partnership with Corex is important, so they could pay a portion.
Right.
And then any other MUD that tries to come in and get service, they pay a portion as well. So, you know, when you look at it in the aggregate, that's how we're able to make some of the big differences in gap. The one that the ratepayers, the $5 increase, that's mostly to manage existing operations.
Okay. Okay, my second to last question is page 116. Goal number 4, that the city did not receive the award in fiscal year 2024 due to staff turnover, and that's such a bummer. I was always so proud when they got to announce that.
Our distinguished budget.
Yeah. So you think we're on track for?
I do. That just happened to be when our CFO
Yeah.
left and we had a change in personnel, so.
Yeah, we had a good track record there. Okay, my last question is kind of an overview. Like, this is like this budget that we're looking at, like, I'm assuming the departments submitted their wish lists and then things got cut, or were they asked to cut things? Like, basically, what got cut and what got cut from what we're looking at right now?
Pretty much everybody got what they asked for in terms of what I'm going to say are one-time things. Not a whole lot got cut. I mean, we managed to move the coconuts one way or the other, whether it was coming from one-time general fund or one-time fund balance type thing. I did have some requests that came in late. I shan't name her, but you used to be the chair to that board. In terms of personnel cost that did not make it into the budget. And you heard HR say also there was an additional request on their end.
And streets as well. So there's some personnel requests that didn't get filled, right? Like I said, across most departments, do you think?
No, I'll tell you three: parks, streets, and HR.
All asked for personnel and didn't. But the
Oh,
need.
fire also.
Fire
And fire.
And fire
okay.
department, yeah.
Okay, and so those needs remain, but we're not addressing them in this budget.
We are not addressing in this budget.
Okay. Do we have any, is there any way to address those needs without money, is there any, those needs remain. I'm just aware that those needs remain. And are there any grant opportunities for any of these folks?
Not that I'm aware of. Grants normally don't cover operational stuff. Grants are typically capital, but I'm happy to let the directors
Yeah.
speak to that. Yep. And so we might say, for example, a street position is $42,000. Well, there's, as I've explained, between the retirement, the insurance, all of the weighted benefits that come along with it, plus the internal overhead costs for that person, things get pretty expensive pretty quickly. So 42,000 will turn into 75,000 like that without even a vehicle being included in the mix, or office space or anything like that, so.
Any other big needs that were chopped that you're aware of, like pressing needs? Do you think we got everything created?
Well, we are pretty behind on building maintenance and facility maintenance, and when I say behind, I mean super behind. And so, Doug can attest to that. We, every department used to have that money in their budget, and then, they'd run out of time to make necessary repairs, and then those monies would be swept to fund balance, or there was kind of a rush in trying to do it. Just because we saved money at the end of the year doesn't necessarily mean that was a good thing, because we're sort of paying the piper now. Is there anything, Doug, that wasn't funded that absolutely needs to be funded?
Deferred maintenance always costs in the long run. Always.
Deferred maintenance, right?
Absolutely.
I think overall we did a Herculean effort with what we had, considering there wasn't a whole extra to work with, and the needs continue. And had it not been for the rate pass on the health insurance, I'm really not sure what we would have done.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. So can you tell us where we are regarding the replacement for the city secretary? Are you going to use someone internally for now? Where are we looking at salary-wise there, based on what's budgeted?
Not sure on salary, because I don't know if I can attract somebody at what the current incumbent was making. We do have an interim city secretary starting on the 6th, on Tuesday the 6th. She is a retired city secretary from Rockport and Port Aransas and comes with more than 30 years of experience. We also have the position posted, and we've received several good applications already. So the plan was to have an interim through November if we didn't have a whole lot of applicants come in, but that doesn't look like that's going to be the case.
And will that interim be paid the current salary?
No, that interim is going to be under a not to exceed 49,999 contract.
Okay. The $5 increase, so I remember when I first came on, probably before the $5 discussion about the $5 water increase, and you said that this is the last increase. What are we looking at future-wise?
So it was a 5-year plan to bring us to American water wastewater standards. We'll have to do another assessment to see where our fees sit at that time.
So that was to bring us to that AMMA.
Mm-hmm.
Has that changed?
We don't have a new assessment yet. Curtis?
So we have to see where that is now
Yes,
in
we'll
terms
we'll
of
have
what
to
the
we'll have
cost
to
might
run
be.
a new assessment. Mhm. Mm-hmm.
2 to 3 years. No increase?
No increase, that $5 5-year, Curtis says we still have a good 2 to 3 years solid before a rate increase.
Okay.
Edie just said we're waiting on the rate study, so.
Okay. The wastewater treatment plant, so you said that we need capital impact for Phase 2. So are we at a standstill at Phase 2 because of that? Or I guess I'm trying to understand where the money, where we were we only anticipating that money for the Phase 2 to come from impact fees, or was there a bond or something issued to cover the Phase 2?
It was going to be a combination of both. It was going to be debt, and it was going to be a rate impact study. Right now, we have ARPA funds that are rehabbing our old treatment plant. Curtis and company are in that process right now. We think that's, in the $3 to $4 million range, which is a much more manageable number than $100 million on the next expansion. So just depending on what that rate study says on how much we can increase in impact fees will really tell how much of an expansion we can take a bite out of. I know that the council talked about, we may as well do it all at one time because things get very expensive and we're going to need the room. And that's very true. That's very true. But it's also, I got to figure out how to pay for it without having a super detrimental impact to the existing ratepayers.
How is that going to impact the development going forward? Because are we fully functional on the wastewater treatment plant now?
We are, with the exception of the HVAC system. So the staff's not been able to occupy the office space just yet, but the plant itself is up and running.
Dumping water, or dumping into the Colorado?
It doesn't dump into the Colorado just like that. It's cleaned. It's
No, I know,
serviced.
but I mean, it's running the whole gamut. We are
Yes.
functionally running
Yes.
that water treatment plant now. And
Yes.
we were at 95% capacity? What were we at turn up?
No, we would have been at more than 70% capacity had we completed the transfer lift station project and turned all the flows over to the existing plant and had everything come online that was supposed to come online. All of Valverde and all of everything that had already been planned, none of that has come to fruition. So no, we're not at that capacity. But Valverde will come on pretty quickly, and as the Corex line, as the 969 line gets built, things will start wanting to come on pretty quickly. We do have an alternate development that has come in and spoken to us, which may negate our need to expand as much on the new plant. We may have an opportunity for the north side of the river as part of a development agreement. I can't share a whole lot there yet because we're still under NDAs, but again, we would be looking at a cost share in a development type agreement, whether it's a public improvement district or whether it's a MUD or something like that, where we can get help to construct the necessary facilities. That's why keeping the existing plant online buys us time in order to be able to still serve. We have not switched 1,000% of the flows over to the new treatment plant because we're still operational in the old plant.
So are we okay, though, with the amount of development that's coming in on the west side? With where we are now and not starting Phase 2 is my concern. And not having the money in place.
We are okay today. I will give you a different answer at the end of September.
September? September could be good or bad.
Well, it's not going to be bad. It's going to be, okay, our impact fees need to go up X amount. And my expectation is the council is going to say, oh, that's too big of an amount. That's going to stifle development. And then we'll have to, hash it out over that.
Okay, thank you. So I asked about the secretary, 50,000 through November, you said there.
November or less.
And then $5. Oh, so the severance. So we were given a number of $500,000 on severance, but that wasn't that was total since you've been employed as city manager, right? After I started thinking about it, it was like, wait, some of that was back in 2022. Do we know what the amount was for 2023, 2024?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I would have to defer to Tanya.
And there's no line item that shows that because it's taken from different departments.
It's taken
correct?
from the originating department, and it's taken out of their personnel costs.
Okay. I think I had asked for a breakdown of that, and I don't know if I got it.
I think y'all got it. Yes.
Did we get it and I just haven't read it yet? Okay, I'll look for that. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Meyer.
Thank you. So Sylvia, you and Edie, I want to thank, and also everyone who worked so hard on this. And I'm very happy to see this year, as opposed to last year, that our community assets and our partners got their ask. So that was something really, really great.
So the community partners, not so much. So that will also need to be revisited. The community partners, their ask was what they got last year.
Last year,
So
right.
there was
right.
about $17,000, 500 difference or so of the new ask this year that's not incorporated into the budget. And there's some new requests for in-kind at the convention center, which we're not going to be able to do because we ran the percentage numbers in the hot task force, and we're 49.51 right there, so.
Gotcha. Well, I did see the cats propose 3,500, so that was good for the cats. My other question is, I think it was last year we talked about grant writers, and were we contracting out for grant writers, and then we were going to bring it in-house, and I see the accountant has been added.
We still do. Our grant writers are a little bit different, and they're almost paid like a contingency, so they don't get paid if they don't get awarded. There's administration worked into the grants. I think we could be a little bit more aggressive. All of our firms could be a little bit more aggressive. Right now, they sort of wait for staff to say, hey, this is a great grant, can you go after it? Once in a while, they'll tell us, hey, this is, this one's open again, we need to go for that. So part of the CIP person's role would be to do that as well.
Okay.
Well, not just go after new grants, but we have a lot of grant administration that happens right now that Laura, the assistant finance director, is actually doing. And when you're so disconnected from the project itself, it's very hard to match those things. So somebody who doesn't know anything about the capital project trying to reconcile the grant and the grant needs, it gets very difficult. That's why having that person in one body is a good idea.
Very good, thank you.
On that question on the grants specialist, that's to manage the grants as opposed to write the grants, am I correct?
That is to manage the grants as opposed to writing, if they happen to come up on something.
Yeah, that's a tough job in and
Yeah.
of itself, yeah.
Yeah.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. Cemetery. So I feel like the cemetery has been, that money has been reserved for the columbarium for a while. Where are we on that?
We're actually paying a visit on Friday to the columbariums in Austin. Expect 100% design to be at the end of September in front of the board. That target's moved quite a bit, so it's been a difficult, it feels like going to the carnival and trying to hit the little moving target, but needless to say, we're there. So the columbarium that Luck Architects had proposed had like a 12, 18-month lead time, and Robbie Sanders, the chair, found a local Austin that can have a 4-month lead time. The difference is the one in Austin, they're made out of metal, and so the design will have to be changed a little bit because they can't be weight bearing. They had some things over it that were part of the design. So I'm hopeful that we're able to get out to bid at the end of September and then have the project started in the first quarter of 2025. Man.
So going back to the wastewater treatment plant, you said 100,000 is what we're looking at. I mean, 100 million. 100 million. Where is that on, because on page 167 under SIF, is that cost broken up throughout the budget book? Because that says 1 million.
Oh, no, there's zeros left off of that.
1,130,000.
That might just be design.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. This is design. And where am I missing the other cost?
What page are you on?
I'm initially on page
Oh, you're on
167,
166 and 167.
and then 170 is the 38 million? And that's what part of the project? That's not 100 million.
No, the 38, no, that's just, we just plugged in 2026's cost.
Oh,
We would have to break it out over time. However, I mean, we took 3 years to build, that's the way the software breaks it up.
okay. And then I noticed, this is off the wastewater treatment plant, back
And
to.
100 million is the number we got from Friesen Nichols, middle of last year.
I didn't see any, there was a $0 amount for Mardi Gras,
It's included in the hot funds. There's $40,000 included in the hot
40,000,
funds.
okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Kirkland asked on roads, really more on traffic, what can we do to speed up projects that add new road capacity parallel to 71, Blakey and Agnes? Will some additional funding move any of these projects faster? Well, on Blakey, yes. So Blakey has a longer lead time because there is some environmental work. We have a grant, and the grant requires environmental studies. And those environmental studies are going to be at least a year. If we choose not to go through the grant process with Blakey, that means the city would be on the hook about $5 million, 5 million additional, or 7? So there's a couple of things to consider, and that is the new traffic impact fee is what would hopefully build Blakey, and projects that were in process at a prior point, they're going to come to you and probably ask for relief because they didn't plan that in their pro formas with the project. I can think of 2 really big ones right now that if their building permit fees are anywhere I think they need to be, the traffic impact study would, or the traffic impact fee would pay a giant portion, if not 100% of Blakey.
Councilmember Lee, Councilmember Lee.
Whatever happened with the Loop 150 corridor study?
It was canceled.
It was
Campo pulled
canceled.
it back.
We did what?
Campo pulled it back.
Thanks.
There was a difference in expectations on that. You have another question, Councilmember Lee? On the 49,999 contracts, are those figured into each department budget?
Yes, it would come out of, if not professional services, personnel.
And so is there, at some point in time, there will be a limitation to how many of those we can fund out of those departments? Or is it, we will not take it outside of the budget that has not been approved? Am I correct? My concern is probably well, the second question is on the legal fees, unanticipated legal fees. I noticed that I can't find anything in the budget relative to legal fees. Where are we accounting for legal fees, both anticipated as well as unanticipated?
I believe legal fees are also in the organizational line item that was in that same 700. Edie, is that correct? Yeah, legal fees are also in that org. Yes, embedded in that 700. Let me ask her how much was budgeted.
In the 700, what?
They're embedded in that 700. I'm going to ask her how much was budgeted.
Okay.
So the mayor and I had a prior conversation on 250,000 was budgeted in that 700. We'd had a prior conversation about legal fees, and how difficult it is for staff to manage that. And so we were talking about a way to create a policy for the council. And that is because the attorney doesn't work for me. He works directly for you guys. I don't know what you guys talk to. I don't know what y'all talk about. We just get a bill, and you've seen the bill. They're very vague sometimes. I don't know what it is. And so what I had proposed was each of you have a code, and each of you have an amount. So if he's talking to you, Councilmember Lee, he's coded to that amount, and you're allocated $10,000 or whatever number the council wants to divvy its fees up into. And when you've reached your amount, you got to go back to the mayor, or you got to go and share your costs with another council member.
Or bring it back to council.
Or bring it back to council. And part of that conversation was, we don't know how to handle it. Very similar to the way the engineering fees were. This engineer called that engineer, called that engineer, called that engineer. And before I knew it, there's 4 engineers on a project that we didn't know were on a project that now had a bill associated with the project. And groupthink started to happen with the engineering fees anyway, because we had not to exceed contracts. So that was one of the, I don't think we got very far on that conversation.
It was a great concept, great idea. I'd like to explore a little bit more so we can get a better grasp on legal expenditures on that, and at least be able to account for it in some way, shape, or form.
Or, at least talk to the city attorney about the way things are classified or shown on the bill, because it'll, sometimes they just say general. So if you go open your invoices, it'll just say general. And, it comes to me simply as a pass-through to finance, but I don't ever say, well, what happened on 7/12? What did you discuss about that? I don't ever do that. I just pass it on to get paid. Actually, they come to you, do they not?
A copy comes to
Yeah.
me, yeah. And I look over some of them, but as you said, you can spend a great deal of time trying to break it down as to what it is, because it's legal billing and they have their own language also. But I'd like to consider something like that so that we can get some level of control and idea of where our expenses are going to. So if we could bring something, after you talk to Alan, we can bring something back at our next budget
I
discussion.
can talk to Alan.
To take that into consideration. Councilmember Foster, you have a question?
Me again. For those this is not related, are you done with that?
I
This is
am.
a different topic. Okay, thank you for letting me jump. For the departments that asked for additional personnel and didn't get it, that would be streets, parks, HR? Are those the only 3?
And fire.
And fire
And police, because police only got
and police
2 out of 12.
out of 12 requested. Okay. Is there any, oh, with fire and police, no. And streets, no. I guess I'm thinking mainly about parks. Like ever since they started doing this special, and this is just observations, the special events permitting, it seemed like it was out of place. Like, I wonder if our special events manager couldn't handle special events.
So special events are not only with parks. Special events have been divvied up. The ones that are in the parks are the ones that are
Handled by parks?
handled by parks.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha. I was just wondering if we could relieve those departments in any way, since we can't add personnel. Is there anything we can do with their workload? Okay, thanks.
I see no other lights on, no other questions, no other concerns.
I will say, Councilmember Foster, there is a lot of mowing that happens in parks, but we also have a third-party mowing contract that is well funded. And so if that needs to be supplemented to remove some of the mowing, I don't know, that's a conversation I'd have to have with Terry. But what isn't taken into account in the staffing is that supplemental contract.
Councilmember Lee.
Piggyback off of that, because I also was wondering about that weeks ago. So much has happened, I forgot about it, the question. But I'm thinking more staff for help, Terry, help, an assistant or someone. Is it just Terry and one other person, right, that's helping run that Parks Department? And they asked for someone, right?
She asked for a team lead. She asked for the team lead outside of the budget process.
I kind of see that as, I don't know if there's someone that we can use from within to assist, but I feel like that would be beneficial to that department.
So
Have you
we can
looked at?
potentially reduce the third-party mowing contract and move some of those funds over to give her a team lead. I mean, it's half dozen one, 6 in the other. But there is a significant mowing contract. Terry, how much is that mowing contract?
For the parks, public buildings, and all right-of-ways, it's $250,000.
What is, yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, that's going to be bid out, so perhaps there's some savings
Something
there.
there. Some consideration, I think, should be given for that group, just based on knowing what all she's dealing with. I know that additional assistance could be, but I also know that we can't hire what we can't hire. But if, I was wondering if there was someone in-house that we could use and, put in that role or to help her out. So some thought for that.
I will take a look.
Thank you.
Seeing no other lights indicating at 6 o'clock, the things that I have on my list for future discussion is to discuss the change in the retirement process, the severance or drag-out pay breakdown, the possible control of legal or management of legal expenses, and then this last question from Councilmember Lee relative to whether or not we can utilize existing resources for to help the Parks and Recreation. Did I word that correctly, Councilmember Lee? Yes. And that's the only 4 things that I wrote down for additional discussion.
I'm sorry, severance, park and rec, retirement, what was the fourth?
It would discuss the change in retirement program, the severance or drag-out pay breakdown, the possible management of legal or better management of
okay.
legal expenses, and then the utilization of internal staff to enhance the ability of the Parks Department to do what they do, Parks and Recreation.
So they have an administrative assistant that was funded between parks and streets. That person isn't going to, perhaps we can transfer or recondition that position.
All right, council, we have any other questions, concerns, comments for our city manager relative to this pre-budget workshop? Madam City Manager, you have anything else you want to add?
I would like direction on the, I'd actually like direction on these, on the 2 items that have an impact on the budget. Is it the council's desire to do 25 to 20 on retirement so that we can go back and shift? And then is it the council's desire to add a body to Park and Recreation so I can go back? Those are really the only 2 that impact the budget per se.
Well, I think Councilmember Foster that wanted to have a little bit deeper discussion on the change in the retirement program from 25 to 20 years. I had some concerns on that originally, and I began looking at other cities of similar size and other cities across the state, and majority of them have a 20-year retirement program, and I was quite surprised to see that. But what is the specific, or do you have specifics that you want to discuss on that?
Actually didn't have anything specific. We hadn't talked about it publicly as a group yet, so I wanted to get everybody's take on it. Just that we could do it now, we could do it next year.
Well, I think because we're at 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
I think at the next budget meeting, we could probably have a little bit better discussion on that. I think you've already provided us the numbers on that of what the impact would be. One that is a $100,000 one-time fee, and the rest of it is $9,000 a year. I think we can discuss what that entails, what the overall impact would be for our employees, who's affected by it, who's not affected by it. and just have a general discussion. Was that what you
Yeah,
was kind of
that'd
looking
be great,
for?
thank you.
And relative to the parks, and I don't want to speak for you, Councilmember Lee, but just what kind of impact would that have between departments, or would it have an overall impact on our budget?
Would the council consider increase in park facility rental fees, et cetera, to help bridge some of that shortfall?
I think that's on the table as far as I'm concerned.
They're pretty modest right now, I would think.
Yeah. I think the last time we evaluated those charges was probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I think the Assistant City Secretary was involved in that discussion. So it was about 5 years ago. So perhaps it's time for us to consider that. So anything else you wish to add, or any other questions, any other clarity, any other direction?
No, thank you.
Outstanding.
Mayor, ask Sylvia.
Oh.
On the
Councilmember Meyer,
parks,
I'm sorry.
thank you. On the parks, Sylvia, would you be able to give us a number? Because saying we wanted to add without having a number, and how much more that would be for another person, because when we're not adding other people to other departments, I just don't want to generalize and say yes, but if we can shift other costs to cover that, that would be a better.
So just a
Proposal.
body, just a foreman at $55,000 with the overhead, a loaded salary rate for just the body is $71,500. That's not including a vehicle, that's not including anything else.
And I'm sorry, one more time, the other departments, it wasn't park, it was also fire, police.
Fire asked for 3 additional, which is essentially a whole new shift. Police had asked for 10, 12 total? 12. She got 2. HR had asked for 1, and then,
Okay, so just considering all that information, it would be really hard for me to say, yeah, we'll just create, another park. So I would like to have a lot more conversation about that.
they're all general fund departments, and so that's what makes it difficult, because they're all fighting for the resource. And so what we're really paying for are, I don't want to call them sins of the past, but unknowns of the past. When we entered into development agreements and chose not to annex, we left all of that ad valorem on the table, which is why I will constantly tell the council, don't do it, don't do it. I mean, water, wastewater revenue is important, but so is ad valorem, absolutely. So annexation is important, and as soon as we can do it through agreement or otherwise, we need to do it. We're servicing a lot of these people anyway through interlocal agreements. We have an interlocal with the sheriff, we show up. We have interlocal with the ESDs, we show up. And so it's important for us to be cognizant of those things. The park, if she can offset some of that with increase in revenue, that may be the same. Police and fire have a hard time raising revenue. It's illegal for me to tell the police chief to go give out more tickets to have more staff. She'd go to jail and I'd go to jail, and we're not doing that. And the same thing for fire. I don't want to go tell the fire to be difficult on C of Os so they could raise money. So, so if there's a revenue increase that can happen through fees and parks and maybe bridge some of that, I'll bring that back as well.
Right, and maybe also, like you suggested on the contract, I think Andreas said bidding out that, so maybe there could be some saving there.
Thank you, Madam. Councilmember Fossler.
Last thing, to add this to the budget book next time, that all funds summary sheet, that's so helpful. We've had it in years past, and I found it before, but I'll send it
Yes.
to you, but that's a really good,
Yes,
easy snapshot.
and we have that. We couldn't get the font to be pretty. Does the one you have in your hand look all stretched out?
No, it's pretty,
Oh, yeah,
but it's from last year.
yeah.
All right, let's run through this again. No further questions indicated.
Move to adjourn.
I have a motion
Second.
to adjourn. I have a second. We are adjourned.